In the boardroom. I'm going to wait for Sam to tell us we're live to open the meeting. Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to this board meeting of the Salt Lake City School District Board of Education. Today is Tuesday, September 6th. It's 5:00 p.m. I would like to entertain a motion to convene a closed executive session for the purpose of discussing character and competence of an individual, and physical or mental health of an individual, and deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems, as well as litigation, negotiations, and property.
President Ford, I move that we enter a closed executive session concerning items A and B, litigation, negotiations, and or property, character, professional competence, or physical and mental health of an individual, and or deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
A motion by Mohammed and seconded by Bryce. Let's go ahead and vote on the motion if there's no discussion. Okay, we'll start with you, Board Member Williams.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Siegel, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and close this meeting. And we will turn off this live stream. Thank you, Sam. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. I'd like to welcome you here to this Salt Lake City School District Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, September 6th, 2022. Thank you all for being here. We really do appreciate your attendance at our meetings. We appreciate the representation we have from our employee groups. Thank you for being here as well. I'm going to read a statement that I'd like to share with all of you. Thank you for participating in our meeting tonight, whether you're here in person or watching the YouTube live stream of our meeting. We appreciate your involvement and attentiveness to the important work of our district. We do this work with you, our partners, and it truly takes all of us. Before we begin our board meeting tonight, I'd like to take a couple of minutes and share some updates and information with you all. In our last board meeting, I informed you that Dr. Gadsden's contract requires that the board participate in mediation when a dispute arises, and that in accordance with that provision, the board is moving forward with its plans to participate in mediation with Dr. Gadsden in good faith. This process is still ongoing, but if any board action is necessary after the mediation is concluded, that action will be taken in a public meeting. Thank you for your patience as we continue to move through this process. As a board, we are confident in the work of our district and school administrators, educators, and staff. The first week of school has only bolstered our confidence in the dedicated and skilled work that is taking place in all of our schools and classrooms. We have seen our teachers, administrators, and staff welcome families at first day of school activities, back to school events, orientations. We've seen you work in our lunchrooms and on our buses and on our playgrounds. We are thrilled thrilled by the energy and excitement that we see and feel in our schools and communities. Thank you for helping us get this year off to such a great start. In addition to our incredible school leaders, we also have dedicated leaders at the district level. These leaders are not always visible, so I would like to quickly introduce you to a team of skilled individuals who continue to expertly lead their departments, while ensuring that our students' day-to-day education experience remain positive. First, we have the standing members of Cabinet, Dr. Sandra Buendia, Ms. Yandri Chatwin, Mr. Logan Hall, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Ms. Christina Kindle, Mr. Paul Schulte, and Dr. Lisan Taylor. Additionally, we have Ms. Erin Anderson, who's our Senior Director over Special Education, and Mr. James Yapius, the Senior Director of the Salt Lake Education Foundation and Community Development Office. All 9 of these administrators are currently supported by our very capable business administrator, Mr. Alan Kersley, as the supervisory lead. While this is not intended to be a long-term solution, I want to express on behalf of the board how grateful we are to all of these individuals and to so many more who are doing everything they can to support our students. And thank you again for joining us for tonight's meeting. With that, welcome. We'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Mr. Mike Harmon. And thanks to Mike for all he does to support our most vulnerable students.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mike. We are always so continually in support and praise for the work you do. It's so appreciated. We have some recognitions tonight that I'm really excited about, and I'm going to turn the time to Business Administrator Kersley to share these recognitions.
We'd like to invite Ms. C to come forward for our first recognition.
Right here. Do I have to even sit with one of these? I got the loud enough voice. The first recognition that we're showing today is that East and Highland have earned what is called the Sportsmanship Award through Utah High School Association. I just want to clarify that the reason that Highland did not get it is because it's an application, and I will take that on as myself, being the district athletic director, that I was not aware they had not made that application. So I had talked to them today and found out that that's why they were not recognized. Otherwise, they would have been. So I'm going to see if I can rectify that with Utah High School Association tomorrow. And this program has been going on for 12 years through Utah High School Association. It's called Raise the Bar and Earn a Star. So if you go into the schools, in the high schools, you'll see down in the gyms, they've got the big banners up, and for so many years, they've got their stars, their gold stars that are up there. And they earn that by, there's 3 different types of stars, or 3, bronze, silver, or gold. And the schools must display their sportsmanship banner throughout the school year, which all of them do within the, out in their gyms. And student athletes and their parents must sign the sportsmanship pledge on the USHA tryout checklist, and coaches must address good sportsmanship in an orientation meeting with players and parents, which all of our parents do. We have it, all 3 schools have it on Register My Athlete, on where the parents do sign up for the kids on Register My Athlete and sign that sportsmanship pledge. Post the school sportsmanship policy and code of ethics in a prominent location so students and parents and players and fans have a clear understanding of what is expected of them. And all 3 of our schools are on VHN, and which is where you can go on to their websites. Just go on to under athletics on each of the high schools' websites. They'll take you over to that VHN page, It has everything you need to know about what's going on at each of the high schools. And they all have this pledge and code of ethics and our sportsmanship policy listed on that page. Also, another important part is your announcers have to make announcements or appropriate sportsmanship piece at home content tests whenever an announcer and a PA system are available. So you'll hear the football, you'll hear it at basketball. It's over and over again, and that is required for them to be able to earn this award. And then the schools follow the UHSA policies for the fan code of conduct, and schools support and enforce the sportsmanship policy. So it happens that if our schools, depending on what type of year some of our sports have had, we'll maybe bring them down to a bronze or a silver. Based on, and I don't think our parents understand that it is the fans that can also bring that down. They can be ejected. A parent can be ejected from a game. A parent can be ejected from the gym. They can, and that can come from one of our referees who has said that that parent has been creating problems. And usually there's a fair warning. But then if a coach is ejected, then they have to wait a game. They're not allowed to play they're not allowed to coach the next game, and they must take a sportsmanship class that is on NFHS for them to be able to come back and to coach. Basically, that's one area of needs of improvement with our coaches. And in today's world of coaching, sometimes we kind of lose it. And you don't think that you are, and maybe you might have a referee that makes things different. So if a student is ejected, the student ejection is then, they do take the same thing on the sportsmanship. They don't have to pay the $25 to take the class, but they do have to sit out a game. Now, let's say they were ejected in during halftime. Right before halftime, they would sit out the rest of that game and the first half of the next game, let's say at a football game. If it's the end of the year and they're ejected, it still carries over to the next year. And if they transfer, some kids think they can get away with it not by transferring schools. The ejection follows them until they have completed their. So sportsmanship is really big. And your teams also participate in service projects to benefit a worthy cause and post to social media. I see that a lot with all three of my schools. I see the things that all three of them do, or our schools, sorry. I like to call them my schools, I'm pretty possessive. Students should participate in a school leadership conference held on a region or multi-regional level, and they have what is called Dare to Lead, and I have participated as a teacher on those, and they are so fabulous on working with these kids in these programs. And so we really encourage our kids to go. And it doesn't have to be just our captains of our teams or the presidents of our schools. We try to pick a bunch of different varieties of kids that could benefit to become leaders. Also, schools must nominate an outstanding coach from their school to receive the Gold Star Coach Award. And schools must have 0 coach ejections for the year. And then they enter into the statewide sportsmanship video contest or create a sportsmanship tutorial video for your student body to view, and that just came out today. And I will remind the schools about doing this. And then also they also implement their social media process. So I'm happy to say that East and West both received a Gold Star. And I will work on Highlands, and I take that on myself that I did not follow through on that. All right.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Missy. We appreciate you being here. I love that they're your schools. They're mine too. Thank you for that. Next recognition, Business Administrator Kersley.
So next, I'd like to invite our Transportation Supervisor, Ken Martinez, to come up to the table. So Ken Martinez has been instrumental on working on a clean electric fleet, and as such is receiving multiple awards and recognitions for his efforts So today, there's two of them that I would like to recognize today. The first one is an award from the School Transportation News. It is the Green Bus Summit Fleet Award. Ken attended a conference in Reno over the summer, did a presentation there and was presented this award. I don't know where the camera is, but it's, and Ken, you're going to have to clean it. My fingerprints are getting on it, so sorry. So we want to recognize Ken for getting this award and the second award from the Utah Department of Energy. The Salt Lake City School District bus fleet was named the Electric Fleet School District of the Year for 2021. So I just want to congratulate Ken and recognize him for his efforts. I mean, if it were up to him, every bus would be electric. It's like, but there's only so much power grid in the city, so we got to work on that as well. But I'd like to give Ken just a few minutes to kind of talk about these awards and tell us, tell us a little bit about
toot your own horn. Yes, brag to us. We want to hear it.
Well, there's nothing about tooting your own horn. It started, with the student-led sustainability initiative. Of course, business administrator Kearsley, the board, Paul Schulte, all the support, all of our bus drivers that have taken the time to figure out how to drive these vehicles. They're totally different. They're unique. It's taken a lot of time to get things figured out, how to charge them, drive the whole thing. And, we're to a fun part right now where we're learning all the fun things we can do above and beyond. We're taking them up the canyons. We're going up to the ski resorts, finding out if we can go that far. We've gone clear to Heber City and back, and we're just continually growing. We currently have 8 buses in our fleet, with 4 more coming by the end of the year. So it's really exciting times to be a part of this, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the board and thank Alan and Paul, to make this happen. So that's about it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'll let Alan hand you those awards, and thank you so much, Ken. You're quick to give credit where credit is due, and I appreciate that, but also want to recognize your leadership in this effort. So thank you, and thank you to Paul, and thank you to Alan, and then maybe most especially, thank you to our students who led us toward the sustainability resolution that's driving a lot of the work that we're all doing right now, and I think it's good. It's good for our city. It's good for our community. It's good for our health. It's great to be led by students. So thank you, and thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate that. Thank you for what you do. You have such an impact on our students. Often our transportation department, you're the first face that students see in the morning, and last before they go home. Yep. Thank you for setting the tone.
All right.
It's important. Thank you. All right. Thank you for those recognitions. That's always fun and very positive. I'd like to move to our consent agenda, which is our next item, and am open to entertaining a motion on our consent agenda.
President Ford, I move that we accept the items on the consent agenda, which include 1, purchasing account reports, A, purchasing report, B, purchasing report in Excel format, C, budget report for July 2022, D, payment voucher report for July 2022, E, school financial report July 31st, 2022, F, administrative stipend report July 2022, 2, human resource services report, 3, minutes for the board meeting August 2nd, 2022, 4, fraud risk assessment, and that is today, September 6th, 2022 at 6:46 p.m.
Thank you. Bryce, do I have a second to the motion?
I second.
So motion by Bryce, second by Mohammed. Any discussion to the consent agenda? I'd just like to quickly mention on the Human Resource Services report to Mr. Hall. I noticed that we have quite a few new hires, which is good. I want to make sure that we are continuing to make sure that any gaps or holes that we have are filled. It's always important to have really qualified educators and paraprofessionals and support staff, and I know that that's been a focus, and I guess I would just recommend that continue to be a focus. We need as many people as we can to support our students. So thank you, and I would, with maybe a special focus on special ed, and I know that there's a real need there. So whatever we can do to support you in that effort, let us know. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on the consent agenda, beginning with Board Member Williams, Precinct 1.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweatsit, yes.
Okay, thank you. It reminds me, I intended to mention at the beginning that we have Board Member Sweat and Kennedy participating remotely, both of whom are not feeling well. You could probably tell when they voted that neither one of them is entirely healthy. Appreciate them still participating in our meeting remotely. And we're grateful for the technology that allows for their voice to be at this meeting, even though they aren't feeling well. Thank you, both of you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the request to speak, and we don't have anybody who's signed up to speak. We always love to hear from people, but we don't have anybody signed up today, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our reports. And the first item under reports is an update on the start of school report. And Dr. Taylor, that I'm going to turn the time to you for that. Thank you for the work you're doing to support our schools, and when you're speaking, that you're speaking in a microphone. If you want, we can come sit over this way too, Dallin, so that we're in microphones. Brian, you want to come sit over here? You can sit in the microphone. I don't want to tell you where to sit, but let's just make sure there's room for everybody. Thank you. This is a good team. Dr. Taylor, you've got a good team.
Well, we appreciate that. Good evening. We're just doing a quick update on the first day of school and what we observed as we moved through the schools. You'll have each one of the area directors that will present for their individual area, as well as some representative principals that will be speaking. As you look our overall shining stars, when we looked at the reviews, campuses were ready to receive students and parents. I understand the first day that parents were going to be on campuses to view, to see what was going on for themselves. I was pleasantly pleased to see parents in large numbers, and that led to an opportunity for growth that we'll talk about. Excellent use of technology for day one. Instruction started day one, not only dealing with rituals and routines, but also doing direct instruction that was standards driven. We have excellent peer supports in elementary. And what we mean by peer supports, you saw students moving through the halls with peers, supporting them, working with them, guiding them. So if you had a new student to their campus, they had a friend that they just met that day to help them understand the climate and the culture of that school, going to the restroom, going to the cafeteria, and doing other things. Got to get a shout out to transportation. They were excellent and flexible. You know what can go wrong, will go wrong on the first day of school, but they were there doing what was necessary to support our kids. Also with child nutrition. When you look at lunch and breakfast still being served on that first day and our kids flowing through those lines, you know, it was a transition this year. We had to do applications for children, well, for families to make sure that they would receive lunch, but yet that was seamless. Whereas I went through cafeterias, I didn't see a lot of crying, didn't see a lot of kids upset, and that's always a blessing and a plus. Our opportunities for growth. Our transitional grades. By transitional grades, I'm talking 6th grade, 8th grade, and our seniors. What are we doing from day one to service those kids and prepare them for that next leap? Because a lot of times you see focus at the end of the year on that, but what can we do organizationally from the very beginning of the year to help those kids in those areas? Also, Remember we said about parents being present the first day? How can we orientate them in the beginning so they can be volunteers? When you look at having parents visible in the lunchrooms and on recess duties, our campuses are extensions into our community. So before school starts, guess what? You run up on campus and you see kids everywhere. They're on the playground equipment, they're in the back of the school, and if we had organized parents there to assist us as volunteers, we can make sure that we had adequate supervision. Kids, as you see them moving throughout the day, they're going to find areas that are uncovered. And if we have volunteers assisting us, even when we look at those areas that we may not have necessary personnel because we are still seeking to hire, we could have some support systems built. How do we replicate success? How do we move from doing things accidentally to intentionally? And how do we share that information among schools? And that's what we'll be working on as a department. Last but not least, how do we create measurable outcomes? If we did something great this year, how do we submit that and then track it for next year to make sure we continue to do that and we maintain it? Pass it on to Brian. He'll be next.
Oh, I'm board member Sweat right now. Chris, would you take mine, please? So, okay. I'm Brian Conley, Area 1 Director. We have shining stars of the 10 schools that I supervise. Pulled out a few of them here, 5 of the schools with some information. Whoops, East should have been highlighted red so you could see that name easy down at the bottom. But Indian Hills, Mountain View, Glendale, Clayton, and East show a nice cross-section of the schools that are in Area 1. For Indian Hills, some really solid gains and performances in a couple areas above pre-pandemic scores. For Mountain View and Glendale, when you get a chance, Elizabeth Montoya, Family School Collaboration Specialist, she just received an award that was given, the nomination was by a community member for the work that she had been doing with her family, with that parent's child and her, and it was 5 years after the fact that this person nominated her. So Elizabeth's just one of those shining examples of a person who really does some pivotal, purposeful, deliberate work, and we see those effects. Not only what's happening this year that she's doing, but 5 years ago she's doing the kind of things that are getting recognized today. Clayton saw some incredible growth with their multi-language learners, gains of 15%, and Dallin can give you more details on that if you'd like to ask him. East also had those shining star moment of just AP course enrollment, more than 100 more students than last year, and really a pretty right around 600 students, I believe, was a pretty stagnant number for about 4 or 5 years. Last year it jumped up to over 700, so that was wonderful to see too. Opportunities for growth in Area 1. We've heard it already said today, President Ford, you alluded to that first one right there. The numbers that you see on there were district numbers after talking to HR. This was last week as we put this presentation together. We have about 80 parapro openings alone, not in Area 1, in all the areas, but still, it's a large number. And that was last week. We've hired more since then, but it's still a large number. I applaud what Riley's trying to do to take on their chronic absenteeism, which was about there were about 1/4 of their students that were what we would label as chronically absent last year, and that equates to 80 students. And Principal Green and Assistant Principal Solom and the staff there, they know who those students are. They know them by names. They're not just a number, they're names. And so they're trying some different innovative ways to start to get them to come to school, because when we say chronic absenteeism, we're talking those students last year missed 18, 19, 20 days of school, 80 of them. So focused on that, and I know that that's something that rings true with quite a number of our schools. And then for the last one, an opportunity for growth, which the growth has started, but we're in the infancy stages and we can't wait to become adolescent stage and then adult stage of this, but pathways for students, what Dr. Taylor alluded to as far as that transition time for ninth grade students coming in. The work that East Glendale and Clayton is doing is really positive and working to help students become more successful right out of the gates. Area 2 now, Chris Jesland.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to go at this in a little more general terms. I actually had an opportunity to get to 9 of my 10 schools on the first day of school. And relative to last year, I don't think I've seen as positive and supportive and welcoming an environment as I saw this year. Smiling, happy kids and families, the adults in the building, much the same. And I think for me, it felt like we were pretty close to what felt like a normal school year again. So that was a really pleasant way to jump in. I did get to Slicksy the next day and everything was good there. 2 new principals in particular. I want to mention Julia Barrientos, who is a product of the Salt Lake City School District, is the new principal at Liberty, and Christine Marriott, who's not new to us, but has taken over at Benyon for us this year. 2 great additions to my area. I'd also like to mention the addition of the 3 new assistant principals, Tyler Horn, James Smith, and Jessica Garay, who are respectively at Dilworth, Wasatch, and Benyon. And then moving the Beacon Heights AP to full-time, Brian Lowe has had an incredibly positive impact on the start of school. So I appreciate the efforts from the board to make that happen this year. Slicksy, Bryant, West, and Slicksy had done some really intentional things to make sure that those students, and we're talking a lot about transitions here, those students transitioning into their schools, to support them in a way that I think has been unique. Over the last couple of years, obviously, transitions have been difficult for kids. Either they've done it remotely or been sliding into a year when they didn't have a chance to really get to know a school. So I appreciate our secondary schools in Area 2 being very intentional about that work. Title I schools are really focused on identifying academic gaps and implementing interventions early and regularly. The work that's being done in the first week of school to make sure teachers know just what sort of support students need has been really incredible to watch. Where do I point this? Sorry. Opportunities for growth, I just did it as 3 words. We need people. I think that's pretty evident. It's amazing to see what the people in our schools are doing when they're short-staffed, but it is not sustainable. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think collectively we've got to come up with some ways to grow our own folks within our district and look to our high schools to really start that process and provide those kids the opportunities to really see what education can be all about as a career, not just as a student. Again, I want to talk about transitions. I think we need to do this early planning for providing those seamless transitions for kids. We know that the success of students in middle school and the success of students in high school comes in those first few weeks, those first couple months when they are in that building. And if we can do the best job we can possibly do, in particular for our 9th graders, and hook them into those high schools, we know we can keep them and we can actually get them to graduation. And not just to graduation, but actually get them to graduation with a skill set that they need to be successful when they leave school. And then finally, I think part of that work has to be how do we create opportunities for communication to happen vertically amongst educators. It's fairly easy to pull that off in an elementary school. It becomes more problematic as we move up. But now we've got a whole host of educators who have figured out technology and how to work remotely and how to communicate remotely, meet that way. I think we've got a real opportunity to grow that communication, so we are doing a much more seamless job in terms of providing the appropriate educational support for students as they move through our system.
Thank you.
Becky.
I'm Becky Pittum. You can hear me. And I'm the Area 3 Director. I appreciate this opportunity to be here tonight to share some great things that I saw during that first week as school began, and also the week before. Some really great things that I noticed. So just starting, I wanted to give a welcome to 11 new administrators in Area 3. You can see their names up there. We have lots of work to do in helping with bringing these administrators on board, but I'll tell you, they are on fire and excited, and it's exciting to see what they're doing together. Just want to particularly highlight Janelle Rodriguez, who came from Liberty to Hillside as the new principal, Matt Teeter to Backman, and then Karen Holman as the new principal of the open classroom. Some shining stars from Area 3. Wanted to point out that all of our schools have this laser-like focus right now, and I'm sure you have been out in the schools and can feel it, this energy of this new renewal that we all have of the post-COVID movement, right? And shout out to Rose Park and Edison that they have met or exceeded their pre-COVID levels in all of their RISE assessments. And we're hoping, I would love to sit here next year and say all of the schools have met or exceeded those COVID levels. And then our SEL rollout saw lots of positive just teachers and staff and parents and kids helping one another, welcoming one another, and the great rollout of this new expectation of the direct instruction of social emotional learning that we're seeing. One thing that's great about it is every school seems to be doing it in a little bit different way. So it hasn't been dictated to them exactly what they do, but the how of it, they've figured out. So that has been exciting to see. Just a little highlight on that, for example, Janelle Rodriguez at Hillside with Justin Spencer, the new AP. So that's a whole new administration right there. They have been working diligently from the get-go, from the minute they got together, and they have done a rehaul, a refurbish of Hillside, not just physically. You walk through those halls, and they had a big, almost like a contest of challenging everyone to clean up and spruce up, throw stuff away, and that has created a great positive energy. Also, a reset of their PBIS plan and really implementing that into the building. So a great little highlight for SEL. And then I wanted to point out our teacher leaders. Boy, we have got great teachers, and I see that every day when I'm in our schools, and they don't get enough credit. Teachers stepping up and being leaders. I was able to witness this a couple of weeks before school when I was invited in on a meeting at Rose Park where Nicole brought teachers in, her coaches in, and they were solving a problem together. I loved it, and I loved watching Nicole ask them questions and listen to them, and then turned around, and because of that discussion, they came up with a solution that we hadn't even talked about. So just that great positive energy. Another example of that would be at Highland High this year at Back to School Night. Jeremy worked with a group of teachers. The teachers put Back to School Night together and just lined those halls at Highland with all kinds of activities, all kinds of positive energy, and they had ended up with over 500 families showing up. Just a tremendous a tremendous showing up of not just teachers and students, but then I realized after I sat down, I should have put one more star, and that would be families. right? Our shining stars, our families, those families that are showing up at these back-to-school nights, showing up to volunteer. There's just this wonderful resurgence of energy that we see across the board. So very excited about that. A couple of other just highlights before I move on. Bonneville picked up 40 additional students this year. We were pleased to see that. And Highland, as of about right now, is around up by 95. So every student we get, we're excited to welcome back, and to have them be a part of this great Salt Lake community. I want to make sure I didn't leave anything out. Oh, wanted to tell you one more really great thing. I'm hurrying.
No, you're not.
Brian says I should use, what is it, Brian? What's the term?
Economy of language.
I don't have that. So that, but I have to just say this one more thing. At Highland Park, another example of great teachers stepping up. They had open house back to school night, okay, which is fabulous. In addition, teachers did 2 Zoom meetings with parents. I mean, is that awesome? Really stepping up, doing more than they're even expected to do what is right for kids. Areas for growth. Increased proficiency and growth, obviously, in our reading and math and science. Increased focus on this social emotional learning. It creates the climate and the environment where students can learn, where teachers can thrive, right? That's what it's all about. Effective implementation of PBIS plans. And then hiring continues to be a struggle in our schools, particularly with our special ed positions. If you look, this is just area 3. And you can see we need 11 special ed instructional paras. These are for highly impacted classrooms. It's hard work. So we have got to find solutions and put them in place. I wanted to just say from the standpoint of administrators, I sent a brief survey out to my administrators and said, is there anything you want me to say? I said, I can't guarantee I'll say it all, but I will say some of it. And the things they wanted you to hear tonight as a board, they want you to know they appreciate the work you are doing for the students and the families and the teachers. They want you to know they really appreciate these new assistant principals at the elementary level, and that it is making a positive impact. They just said, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I wanted to share that with you, and let you know that they want to share their ideas with you. They have ideas of how to solve some of these problems of hiring. So that's area 3. Yeah.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Shante Broadway McDaniel. And before I get into just going on with what's going on in the schools, I wasn't here at the beginning of the year last year. So I wanted to make sure to take time to go to all of the meetings and meet and greets and of the teachers first, because I thought it was very important for us to tell teachers thank you. Because across the nation, we see it, teacher shortage, teacher shortage, teacher shortage, education shortage. So I really just was out saying thank you. That was my first order of business on 2 wheels, and then we got back and we got to see why we're here. How did school start? Well, we have a new strong administrative team at Emerson. Kudos to Principal April Reynolds. She was Principal of the Year for Salt Lake City School District. She has Nicole Suji as her new Assistant Principal. Escalante, we have a new team there. We have Ana Rodriguez joining that team. I really want to give a shout out to them, and if you could refer to a couple tweets that were sent out about Escalante, they were so intentional of welcoming families with balloons and arches, and the families were stopping and taking pictures and videos. So it really felt like a welcome back. Newman Elementary School, I have to give a shout out to them because we worked on the PBIS issue last year, and they also, you can see evidence of that in some tweets, to see the entire staff and students working on it. You have to model PBIS, and they took time to show expectations, and the staff and the students worked together. It was phenomenal to see. Parkview, congratulations. When I came last year, it was not the beginning of the year, but we had interim principals. So one good thing that we can say kudos to the whole district is that we have principals in place. So Justin Milner is our full-time permanent principal at Parkview. And I just want to talk about like what happened this week, but he should be recognized and know that that Title I school is doing some things that other Title I schools aren't doing. So we really should look at their best practices. Uinta, the staff, that was one of the schools I didn't get to see them collectively in their meeting, so I wanted to go to each teacher's classroom and just say thank you, and to see the inviting places and how they had their classrooms, and they were so creative. I just was excited to see. Then I went back the next day to see the kids, and the kids, it was like they weren't coming back from summer break. It was just a great transition, and they were very happy to be there. Northwest Middle School, I'm very proud of Principal Seminario and her staff because there's been a hard reset on focusing on academic and behavioral improvement in the school. She spent the summer creating an impressive plan to facilitate and monitor these expectations, and we'll be monitoring them throughout the school year. Horizonte, also, there was some transition that we had there last year. Sat down with that team over the summer. We really streamlined the processes to see who does what. We have a new assistant principal that's, she previously was a Horizonte student, and now she is a Horizonte assistant principal. I think that's a great thing that we should say about that program. So with that, we will continuously monitor them. So Amina, I'm very excited for her. And I actually got to visit the Humanitarian Center today. It was amazing. South Park Academy, congratulations to Chris Sullivan, and he is probably one of the hardest working people I know. To take South Park Academy from another city, bring it under our purview, and he's hit the ground running with USBE, the State Department of Corrections, and any other stakeholders, getting our clearance, and April Johnson can talk to you all about that. There's a lot that he is having to deal with, and with their own transition from the correctional site itself. Opportunities for growth. Everyone has said it's staffing, so I don't need to beat that dead horse. We know we need people. We need a concentrated focus on more students being proficient in ELA, math, and science across the board in all of our schools. A focus on PBIS for consistent routines school-wide. It's a policy to have PBIS, but I really am seeing some exemplars that can be out there, and so kudos to them. And let's continue to work with our schools, and we've been working with Missy and Title I to get our designated TSI and CSI schools off the list. I know that feeling as a principal. To get off that list is just, it's an amazing feeling, and I would really want our principals to feel that. Our virtual elementary school numbers are extremely low, much lower than they were last year, vastly lower. So that is something that I do want to just make you all aware of. And then also with South Park Academy to continue to work on that transition program, because they are having things daily so that we can support them. And I believe that's it for me.
Thank you.
You want me to start?
Yeah, you can start.
Hi. My name's Dallin. I'm the principal at Clayton, and I think I applied for this job 3 years ago for the school week we had last week. It took 2.5. I had 2 years to figure it out, and then we really kicked it into high gear, and we were well prepared. I have 13 new hires in my building, which doesn't make sense. We didn't really cut anyone, but we added some new programming, and including our online program. And right now, we're about 10 to 12 kids, and every day we add a new student. They are coming from outside of our valley. You know, they're coming from Jordan School District, Canyon. So the purpose of that school is to bring kids in, and it is. And we also had a full house during back to school night, which parents and students have been waiting for this for a long time, and we're running with it. We are doing everything we can to get kids back into school, so attendance is a huge priority. And how do you get kids in middle school to want to come to school? You do fun things. So that's a no-brainer. So we're doing a lot of fun things, and through MTSS and PBIS, kids are going to want to be at school, and that's important. I also am always asking parents in the neighborhood to go knock on doors. If their kid doesn't go to my school, then we want them back, and that's a huge priority for us to keep our enrollment up. And what else? I really encourage teachers to not do summer school, because they needed a break. And my teachers came back to Clayton ready to be in front of kids, wanting to be in front of kids, and doing the things that they went into teaching to do is what they're now doing. And I also know most of the middle schools that I've talked to, the energy is real. They're happy. The kids are eager to be back. And the data Brian was talking about, I'll just put it in a number. Let's say we had 40 MLLs in our building. Only 13 of them were reading on grade level. We sent them out. 20 of them were reading on grade level. We saw huge gains this past year. And the last thing I want to say, I know that our great cabinet members were recognized tonight, but our area directors are a huge help right now. And you see how many new people we have in our district, and they maintain a lot of information and support to us. So.
Okay, hi. I've been around a long time. I'm Nicole, and I'm the principal at Rose Park Elementary. Hi, board member. So I was so excited to come, and I had this whole thing in my head that I was going to do, and then Brian texted and said we had to talk about the first day of school, and so it just threw me completely off my game. So I had to take some notes. But here's what I wanted to say related to firsts. So by the first day of school, we were fully staffed. And a celebration, and that's paras as well. Well, except the kitchen. We were short a kitchen person, but now we have somebody. So that was exciting. But one of the things that I think you might be interested to know is that we were able to hire Flor Mejia, who was a Salt Lake City School District student, went to SLCSD, and it is her first year of teaching. So we are working with her to bring that loop back together, and she is crushing it. I just keep saying, do you need it? No, I'm good, I got this. And you go in her room and the kids are busy. So we're super excited about that. And another thing I wanted to share is of our 20 certified staff, we now have 9 staff who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color. So we're really intentionally trying to diversify our workforce so our kids see themselves when they come to school, and it is thrilling. So we also are enrolled, Alan. We got our projections last year, and we have 11 more students than we were projected to have for the first time in I don't know how many years. I guess it's Sam that sends that, not you. I don't know. You both came to visit on the first day, so yeah. So we just couldn't be more happy that we have exceeded our enrollment expectations. The trend of back to school night, we had 75% attendance, which is record for us. By the first day, I also want to say our building looks beautiful. Our custodian is fantastic. It's never looked better, and so we were ready to roll. Then, on the first day of school, another brand new teacher, 2 6th grade into public ed, his second year of teaching, had his first son born on the first day of school. So the first week of school, we had patched together teaching for his class, and so the baby's named Oliver, and he's well and happy, and Sel is back with us today. So that was exciting. We also, at first recess, had our first broken arm, and it was so gross, like a roller coaster. It was really disgusting, and so it was a really eventful, first day of school. So super fun. The children came. We loved them and taught them and sent them home, and we've had a great first week. And just to bring you up to speed, we started PLCs today. Our kitchen is staffed, and everyone is fidelity checked for reading Acadience, so we're starting on that tomorrow. We're good to go. And we have our SAM survey done and our goals set, so I thought you might want to know that, because those are things you're interested in. And then lastly, something I learned today that is very cool. I don't know if you know that we reopened our clinic a year ago, and I was able to see data today that they have had 1,073 appointments in a year, which is off the charts for our clinic. So we're really happy about that partnership and how it serves our whole community. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm Brittany, and I am the principal at Salt Lake Center for Science Education, the high school campus in Rose Park. And I am really excited about the start of this year. We welcomed a new freshman class, and we were able to host a really engaging and well-attended orientation for them prior to the start of the school year. And then we're really excited to continue working with our new freshmen. This week we have our 9th grade retreat. I always make it a priority to go to that because I get to know students really well during that time. And it's super exciting to get to do these things that have been on pause a little bit. Our teachers at our campus were able to enjoy a faculty professional development up Mill Creek Canyon prior to the first day of school, which provided a lot of great opportunities for connection and collaboration. And many found that time to be, teachers are really stressed out, and they're always torn between wanting professional development and needing to prepare to teach the humans that are going to show up in a couple of days. But teachers reported that time being really well spent, really worth it, and super rejuvenating for them, and that was awesome to hear. My favorite thing is getting the kids back in the building, and we got spoiled by our peer leadership class who came back to school before the first day of school to get ready to welcome our students into the building, and it was awesome. They created lots of great welcoming posters. They created an information booth that they then staffed over the first week of school so that if anyone needed help, anyone had questions, there was a student available that could help direct them to answers or places. Let's see. Attendance was super high. It was awesome to have so many kids back in the building. And then I love moving through the building on the first day of school because the teachers really hit the ground running, and it was fun to see what they were doing. Already day one, kids were creating pottery in their ceramics class. Our 10th grade students began an integrated thematic unit on Africa, and in chemistry they immediately started exploring through mapping and ongoing poaching through looking at isotopes in goat hair. And Ms. Wickelson will totally school you on how to do that. But the kids were super engaged in that. There was also engineering challenges going on where students were designing towers, looking at shape, strength, height. And then the bike fleet was already being tuned on day one, and I love looking out my window and watching bike rides going past. It brings a smile to my face every time I see that, and it's already been going on. Students have been building models of body systems in health sciences. We're a physics first school, and the first day of school, walking into the physics classroom that all of our freshmen take, they were immediately observing a phenomenon, designing experiments and investigations, and designing, conducting those investigations. And that's just great to see, 9th graders on day one digging into those things. Last year we had a lot of success with our well-being program in partnership with the University of Utah. They provide therapy services to students right on campus. We had so much success with that. We were really excited to be able to increase the hours provided from 20 last year to 30 per week for our students this year. And so that's great. And then a connection one to Nicole's is we have welcomed a teacher this year who began as a 7th grade student at SLCSD. She was a paraprofessional for many years and is now Miss Garcia teaching mathematics, and she is doing amazing things with those students. But I echo my colleagues in the energy has been really optimistic and contagious. I just think teachers are super excited about their work again. They're really excited about where students are coming from and what they're coming to the table with, and it's been a really strong start to the year. I feel incredibly lucky that at SLCSD I am not facing staffing shortages, but many of my colleagues are not experiencing that, and it is a struggle. The only area we're still working to fine tune is our cafeteria, which we're hiring some student servers to help speed things up in the cafeteria. But I love that cafeteria staff. They're always really optimistic. They put up with my really poor, slow service of pizza sometimes, but they're patient with me, and we have some great students that are going to start in there. And so we're just excited for the beginning of the year. Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we start with questions, we just want to take this opportunity to thank Cabinet. Cabinet came out during the first day of school and visited schools. Each one of the Cabinet members spent time in schools making sure they were highly visible and serving as thought partners. Also, shout out and kudos to our administrators, all our principals and assistant principals, whether they be veteran or new ones. Everybody was out working and passionate. You know, that first day of school sometimes can be intimidating, and we're not talking about for the children. So, as the adults were there, our teachers, our administrators, our families, all had that passion and that purpose, and we're glad to be back in school. Now, I can tell you as a parent, I was glad for my kids to go back to school. I think I shared with it earlier, a gallon of milk a day and 2 loaves of bread a day gone. You know, I'm glad to see that kind of evening out. My grocery bill will go down. I know there's some other parents that agree with me with this one. So we're looking forward for maintaining this momentum and having a great year this year.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm going to give board members an opportunity to ask you questions. And this is a great team. And so I'll say to you, area directors, all of 4 of you, thank you so much for the work you're doing to support our schools. And I'm also sure that we could have brought every school principal in, and they would have had awesome things to share with us. And I hope we continue to hear those positive things. Thank you for sharing them with us, Dr. Taylor. It's good to hear, and from speaking for myself, I will say I've definitely felt that positive energy, and I'm so grateful to all of you who do that work. Thank you so much. Board members, do you have questions or comments for this group?
Go ahead.
Jenny?
I was just going to say, can you guys come often to our stuff? Because your energy is, the kids call it now fire. Your energy is fire. And my gosh, I feel that I was assigned to participate after this COVID, and we need that shift. And it's really great to hear this optimism and this positive vibe that hopefully trickles throughout the whole district, because we're definitely in need of it, and I think it stems from each and every one of you guys. And so thank you guys for all that you do. That's it.
Thanks, Jenny. Catherine, you want to go ahead?
Real quickly, Board Member Sika, the best advice I can give on any of that for any of you, any of our central office administrators, any of our parents is go to the schools and you'll get that vibe. That's where it is. That's where the things are happening. Our students, our teachers, our just the 4 of us area directors. We're we get all of our good energy from what we see in our schools and the time we spend in the schools.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I do love the success stories of Salt Lake City School District kids coming back to give back. That's huge. I actually have, this is, sorry, I'm taking up too much time. However, there is a young lady, Glendale Product. She's now in the Granite School District, and her mom's pleading with me, like, we need to get her back, and she's telling me how she's getting all this in the Granite School District and why she's not here. And so I need you to get her back.
Give me a name.
I will give you a name.
Project, thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Catherine? And then Mohammed. Thank you.
Yes. I just wanted to also thank our administrators and the people around the table for the work that you've done, and also our principals and assistant principals and all the people you mentioned in your first statement, Melissa, the people that drive our buses and work in our cafeterias, et cetera. And also, really importantly, our teachers who we know make the difference every day for our kids. So thank you to all of you and for what you've done to make this a successful start of the school year.
Thank you, Catherine. Mohammed?
Thank you. I like This team is on fire. There is a song, yeah? This team is on fire. Yeah, there you go. We're going to put that in there. I'm not going to sing. I just want to say, really, thank you so much for everything you're doing out there. I had the honor of going to schools, and for sure, meeting the teachers in person is the best thing. And not only that, also talking to kids is another best thing. And also seeing the parents so happy to drop off their kids and get in the car so fast. I'm telling you, they were smiling for sure.
Were you one of them, Mom?
Well, that I shall not confirm nor deny. But I just want to say, it makes me so happy to see also the rotation. Some of our students would come to teach at our district, and everything you're doing out there, is just like, you may not see it, but trust me, it does touch lives of so many out there that I personally go and talk with, and I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate it very, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Go ahead. Bryce, and then Nate.
Yeah, certainly just huge gratitude, huge amounts of it for all of you, all the teachers and administrators, custodians, everybody that we've talked about tonight. I definitely caught that vibe while I was out on the first day of school. I'm probably as slow as Brittany Powell when it comes to serving nuggets, but nonetheless, I had a great time just engaging with students and teachers, and I think the highlight of my day was actually serving nuggets to West High students, because they were just so respectful. It's really awkward when people call me sir, but nonetheless, they addressed me as such, and they're just so respectful. They were really honest about how they were feeling about the first day of school. Some were really excited, some were like, it's school again, but really excited to get on with the year and talking about their futures, going to college, what kind of jobs they're working, the teams that they're participating with. So it was just a really, really awesome experience, and just can't speak enough. I got to meet a lot of the administrators that were on the list who are new to our district. Shout out to Christine and Jessica. And Jessica was at Hawthorne and Benyon, so I got to visit with her over at Hawthorne, and it was just an awesome experience. And to echo what Board Member Bade said, all the work that all of our administrators do, either in schools or here at the DO, it's definitely seen and experienced really positive ways. Nibley Park has a new playground. Thank you, Paul, for you and your team for putting that together. The kids were just loving it, and so I just want to thank you all for that energy, and I'll definitely be back out to see you and participate in anything that you need help with in the future. So.
Thanks, Nate. Go ahead, Bryce.
And I'll be very brief, because my colleague said a lot of what I wanted to say as well, but personally want to thank all of you for the camaraderie, the unity, and the compassion that you put into the work you do every day. This is part of the reason I wanted to be at this table, and so thank you for making that experience positive.
Oh, thanks, Bryce. All right, Lydia, you want to tell us how the actual first day of school was from a student's perspective? Tell us the truth.
Well, first, thank you for all of you. The work that you do means a lot to the students, and it makes a real impact in our lives. So, thank you. Well, I think everyone is right. The vibes, I probably wouldn't say the vibes are fire, but you could say the vibes are fire. People seem to be excited to be back to school. And I think everyone has been saying it, but the energy is there. I think last year there was a little bit of a slow start. Obviously, everyone's excited to be back there, but people weren't really sure how it was going to go, and we didn't hit the ground running to the same degree that I think we did this year. I'd like to give a shout out to all the principals. At least at West, I see the principals in our school. I see them helping students. They're active. I think they're making themselves known to the students in a way that's really positive. They feel like the principals are there, and they feel like the principals care about them. I'd also like to give a shout out to the students. I think I've seen a lot of older students, upperclassmen, seniors, helping out younger students when they didn't know where their class was. I've seen students making new friends, seeing people ask people to eat with them if they're eating alone. So I think it seems like a great start to the year. So thank you to everyone, and I'm excited.
And good luck to you. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Yeah. Always fun. Thank you. I appreciated from your presentation the highlights, the stars, and then also the opportunities for growth. And I heard in that and took some notes, some things that we'll want to talk about. And I'm hoping that we can keep this conversation going for the best ways we can support you and our schools, because we know that you support students. Looking, like you had mentioned, the virtual elementary. Let's talk about how we can support that. We know that there are students who need that, but it's also, it sounds like small numbers. So let's figure out and talk about that. And I heard lots of opportunities for really constructive ways to support our kids. And I really love that you are thinking like that. And I hope you'll bring that to us through you, Dr. Taylor. We appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Alan, how are you going to top that?
Esser tops everything, right?
This is going to be fun. All right. Second item for reports is the Arp Esser Report. This is something that the board is committed to having a quarterly update on how this funding is being utilized in support of our students. Thank you, Business Administrator Kersley, for leading us through this.
So we just want to note, we've changed the format of this report from previous presentations, and now we are only including ARP Esser, or otherwise known as Esser 3. As a lot of those other grants we've fully spent and moved on, and we have other small ones, but this is the big one that we did commit to bring to the board quarterly. We've created this report so it mimics, if you remember when the board approved the Esser plan, probably close to a year ago. So this report is built to reflect that plan. And we had the certain areas of where we're going to spend Esser, so those are the areas that are described there down the left. And then we have the activity description, kind of gives a little bit more, just high-level detail of what we're doing in these areas. GL program, GL locations, those are internal numbers so we can track. These are the programs we're using to track the Esser funds, so they're individually reported in these different areas, and it makes it easier to report. So there we have our total budget column. So that's the total budget of the full amount that was reflective of the Esser 3 plan. You can see we, in fiscal year 22, so that's July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, we spent a little bit of the Esser 3 money on two areas, the letters training and then summer school were the two areas we spent in fiscal year 22. Other ESSER-related expenditures we had in fiscal year 22 were paid for with ESSER 2 funds, which we still have one more year of ESSER 2 funds. Those will expire September of 2023, so we'll be spending those this year as well, but we're on track to fully spend those this year. And then you have your column, your fiscal year 23 expenditures through 8/31. Clearly, school barely started, so there's not a lot of expenditures, but as we continue throughout the school year and we bring this report back quarterly, you'll see those areas increase, areas of expenditures. So you can see in total, we still have over $30 million to spend between now and, again, ESSER 3 will expire September 30th of 2024. So we have this year and next year to spend these funds down. We are doing great things with our HVAC systems as approved by the state board to make sure those are up to speed, and then obviously those that expends a lot of money quickly when you start delving into capital projects like that. But we have been working on those over the summer. Those expenditures don't reflect here because the projects aren't done. They're just getting started. So welcome to feedback on how this presentation of the ESSER 3 is. Happy to change it going forward if you'd like to see it a different way or multiple different ways. Open to any questions on how we currently are spending our ESSER 3.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate that. Questions from the board on this report? I think it must have been the perfect report.
Great.
Apparently. Thank you. I would encourage board members to give feedback to Alan on this. I think we are looking to make sure that we expend this money by September 30th of 2024 and use it in the ways that we've outlined. I think we also need to make a plan for when we don't have this money, and so that the good things that we are supporting with it continue to be supported. And that may mean, and probably will mean, some hard decisions from this board. But I encourage us and this board to make those hard decisions, to keep the things that we've implemented with this money that are working, and maybe let go of some things that aren't working as well. Any other comments? I'm sorry, I can't see our board members who are participating remotely, so I don't know if you've got your hands raised or not. Okay. All right, thank you. We will go ahead and move to the next report on our agenda, which is the Highland High School and West High School feasibility studies. Business Administrator, you'll lead this
We have been
discussion.
advertising on social media and our webpage. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock at West High School, we'll have the first of two of these informational meetings as we begin our feasibility studies. The architects which we have chosen for the feasibility studies for both West High School and Highland High School will be there. West is tomorrow night and Highland is Thursday night, 7 o'clock in the auditorium. They'll be passing out note cards so people can write some ideas and give, so this is really just the beginning process of collecting feedback from the communities on as we look at the feasibility of rebuilding those two high schools in the future. Kind of get some community input as we build those plans. So we want to encourage anyone who wishes to attend those two meetings and provide any feedback and input they would like to. Again, it's only a 1-hour meeting, so largely the feedback will be via written note cards that the architects will take and gather and help them as they build their plan.
And you'll provide a report to the board about the feedback you receive.
And again, I just want to, this is the feasibility study, so this isn't final design or anything. It's just figuring out what's possible, what's feasible, where we could put a school, and really trying to get some cost estimates as well as what we're looking at for this.
Okay, I appreciate that you're taking this to the community for feedback. Thank you for that, Mr. Schulte and Mr. Kersley. Other comments from board members?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Lydia.
So is the idea for the written feedback to be, what is it specifically the written feedback supposed to be about for during the note cards?
I mean, the architects will kind of describe what they're looking for when they get there, but it's largely just what ideas, this is probably a once-in-a-lifetime experience to potentially build a new high school. What ideas would you have? What would you like to see in a new high school? What are some learning environments that you would like to make sure get included with that plan?
Would it be possible to send either the survey or note cards out to students through the school day? Because I think a lot of students probably have input or opinions, but I'm not sure how many students with work or other athletic commitments would be able to attend that meeting.
Yeah, we can work with Paul and the architects. So you want to comment on that, Paul?
I want to emphasize that this is...
Board President Ford, is it possible to add a little bit to what Business Administrator Kersley explained?
Yeah, so let's let Mr. Schulte finish what he was saying, and then Yandra, you can...
Do you want to come to the microphone so they can hear you?
And then Board Member Sweat has her hand raised.
Lydia, I'm very thankful for your question, because I want to emphasize that the main purpose of tonight, we're going to have the cards and some feedback, but it's actually to outline the process. So this is just the tip of the iceberg of seeking input. We're going to be meeting with staff members, we're going to be meeting with community members, we definitely will be meeting with students. So I don't want anyone to feel like tomorrow is like the process. It is just to roll it out. But our commitment, which is really the Salt Lake Way, is to seek input from all the stakeholders. So tomorrow is really just a kickoff, and it's just to outline how it's going to work. And then, so we'll get the cards and feedback. The surveys are set up and those type of things, but it's merely the beginning. We're going to circle back around. We have 2 days already lined up at West High and 2 days at Highland, and we're just beginning to get, we're completely and 100% committed to getting your feedback, and we'll be circling it back for a much deeper dive.
Perfect. Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
All right. Yandri?
Hi, thank you so much for giving me a minute. I wanted to add that those note cards are going to be used to gather questions at the event. And those questions, we're going to get through as many as we can in the time we've got tomorrow. Whatever we don't get to, we are committed to answering those questions on our website. So that is the other purpose of those cards, is to make sure that the questions from members of our community are getting answered. And we plan to have live streams for these events in both English and Spanish, and so we've got that set up. As has been said, our goal is to be as inclusive as possible, and that includes taking into account members of our community whose primary language may not be English.
Thank you, Yandri. All right. Board Member Sweat?
Thank you, President Ford. Thank you so much for the report so far tonight and for the input from Paul and the great questions that have been asked. It's been a number of years since we've had to look at the design and building of a school building. And one of the things I would just like our board to remember or to think about as we get this feedback, as Paul sort of touched on, is that we really do put together a building design committee that would consist of our parents, our students, our special ed parents, looking at our early childhood facilities that are also included in our our schools right now, so that as we set the parameters as a board of what that committee would look like, that we make sure that we are including all of those stakeholders. I think that both Melissa and I, possibly Catherine, we have all sat on those building committees in the past, and it's really an exciting thing to be a part of. And so I would just encourage everyone to try and go to these meetings tomorrow night. Think of some of the questions, think outside the box. I love the idea of sending out a survey to the students to get their feedback if they can't come in. But I also wanted to say thank you for making sure that we have the languages available for any of our parents, that would need that. So any information that goes out, obviously we'll go through our translation offices and make sure that we have all of that available. I think this is a very exciting time, for us to be looking at this and talking about it. So it's fun to be a part of it right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Do we have other, you just stay there for 1 second, Paul. I want to make sure. Okay, I would like to just a couple things. What I'm hearing from this, lots of questions about this.
Absolutely.
What is this? What does this mean? I think you've done a pretty good job of answering that. I think these meetings, the next 2 nights, would need to do a better, they need to include this information as well.
Right.
And Yandria mentioned a live stream. I'd love to see maybe a link to that so that people could go back and watch it later too, if they can't.
That's great.
Just so that there's access to it. And then another question I get is, if we're going to talk about ideas, opportunities for once in a generation or lifetime even sort of rebuild in educational ways, positive educational ways for West and Highland. What are we doing in designing those spaces? Then how are we going to provide those opportunities, say at East or in other buildings, other high school buildings? So I just want to make sure that we aren't leaving somebody out of that conversation.
And I want to make sure everyone remembers that the direction the board gave me is we're doing 3 RFPs. So we have the RFPs for the feasibility. We also are just prepping another RFP to evaluate the rest of the buildings in the district as well, and that should be going out in the not-too-distant future to have someone help us look at everybody. And so obviously East and all the schools will be on there, so we're very confident.
And I'd just say if
things
you're
will-
looking at educational spaces that are specific to high schools, let's make sure we provide
Absolutely.
that.
Yep.
And I know that you're all about that, Paul. I mean, we've had that conversation
I have a few
before,
biases about what we need to do for East.
but I want to make sure that we are being very open about that, so that there's not a feeling of one school being left
And I think
behind
maybe
in that.
just shooting very informally off the cuff is that when we get that third RFP incorporated into that, could be a community listening meeting at East.
Right.
Something along
I'd
that
love
line.
to
So I
see
think that'd be
something like
natural to that RFP.
Okay, and those building committees would be really important. And
Absolutely.
And we heard a lot of conversation tonight from the school leadership and performance team and Dr. Taylor's group about transitions, and I think it would be awesome to be looking at all of our buildings and all of our spaces that help facilitate that connections. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. Now we'll go ahead and move to our discussion agenda. And on this, for the discussion agenda, it's let's see, I'll read it. Thoughtful and productive discussions on issues that are critical to students, employees in the district, and or the community. Items on this discussion agenda may or may not result in a motion or decision. So we'll follow our typical process through this. We can discuss an item, and then if the board would like to take action, I will be open to moving it by motion to the action agenda. The first item on the discussion agenda is a campus safety coordinator position, and we have discussed campus safety, and we've heard conversations about that. I think I'd like to invite Mr. Hall from the Executive Director of Human Resource Services to the table to discuss this campus safety coordinator position.
Thank you, Board President Ford, and thank you, board members, for letting me be here tonight. The current proposal before you is really is in an attempt to address an issue with staffing, security, and most importantly, student success by proposing 3 contract positions for a campus safety coordinator. Currently, we have hourly safety positions in each of our high schools, and they're very difficult to fill as an hourly position, which is why we're proposing this contract position. Staffing, as we've heard, is a challenge because there are 2 open jobs for every searching applicant in the country at the moment. And so it's very difficult to fill, especially hourly positions. So we want to make this more enticing, but also make it a more comprehensive position where the focus really is to build relationships with students. When we're talking about campus safety, it's one thing to be able to monitor the campus and observe whether the doors are secure, if there's any trouble in the hallways and things, but it's critical to build relationships with students and ensure kids are in class. That's why we hold school, and the most critical thing we do is to make sure that we're maximizing their educational opportunities by making sure that students are attending class, they're not getting in trouble in the bathrooms or the hallways, that it's a safe, clean, and efficient facility. And so I envision this campus safety coordinator would oversee and coordinate the efforts of other trackers within the building to be able to deploy staff in order to maintain a more safe and efficient facility. So that's the basis of the proposal, and ask Mr. Kersley if there's anything you'd like to add.
I want to make sure Christy knows the answer. So the funding for these 3, so we're looking at 3 positions, one at each of the 3 comprehensive high schools. The plan is that it will be funded by urban issues funds. As the values of those RDA projects increase, we keep getting a little increment money. You're welcome, Christy. So the plan would be fund those positions with district resources, so the schools would not have to fund them with their current allocation. We would fund them with additional resources from the district.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Discussion from the board.
present for.
Go ahead, Nate.
I've got a question for HR Director Hall. I'm just going through the essential functions. I'm wondering, it's a big job. There's no doubt about it. And, just in my brief experience in schools, I know it's an all hands on deck kind of mentality when things are going on, whether that's adverse or even positive. But nonetheless, I'm wondering what type of, I would assume that folks in this position would receive the same type of training that teachers or school counselors might be receiving, especially relative to things like, behavioral issues or de-escalation tactics and skills. What type of, kind of training installation would you be giving these folks?
No, absolutely. There would definitely need to be some training about all those things you're talking about, de-escalation and things like that. I can't say it would be as extensive as teachers,
Sure.
going to for a 6-year degree, but we would be sure to make sure that these individuals also receive some training in those areas. Yeah. There is not a specific plan laid out for that at this moment, but that is part of the plan, is to develop a training mechanism so they would receive some initial training along with ongoing training as well.
Awesome. I appreciate that, and I think this is certainly something that I would be in support of. I know it's hard because we heard a lot from a previous presentation about how hard it is to staff positions right now, but I have heard that a number of these functions are being performed by folks in schools already, and certainly probably by folks who have a lot of other responsibilities as well. So I think freeing up paraprofessionals in some cases to be a para is our big win here in this type of position. So this is something that I would certainly support.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nate. Other comments? Go ahead, Lydia.
I know right now, at least at West High, there's like student advocates or like student resource officers who are performing like a lot of the duties that are outlined in the essential functions. I know you mentioned that, one, they were having trouble staffing some of these positions, but two, like that they're coordinating. Would the idea be that this would replace the like hourly people because it would be easier to hire for a more full-time position, or that they would coordinate like the student advocates?
Both.
Okay.
So that's a compound question there. So they would coordinate the student advocates and the trackers within the school, and it would also replace one of the hourly positions, just so that a full-time person is going to be able to be there longer and provide more service and support, but also have a coordinated effort within the school. And schools still have the discretion to hire additional trackers or advocates, other hourly positions as they're able to both fund and find positions for, or find people to fill those positions. But this is intended to be in addition to those, so that they can just better coordinate those efforts and better streamlining that work. I do want to comment also on the SROs. The Salt Lake City Police Department is also having difficulties staffing as we are. Like I said, two jobs for every applicant. And so they're only able to provide us 5 SROs instead of the 10 that we would hope to have. Hopefully we'll be able to fulfill that by the end of the year, but currently we only have half of that staff that we would like to have in our schools, and so this would be an additional person that would fill that gap.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Mohammed.
Thank you. Safety is always such a big and very important part, and especially in high schools. And I think it'll be good as well to have someone who will be there not heavily armed, walking around the school. And if I may suggest one thing is, when that person is hired, for each high school to have like a town hall meeting where it'll be like students, and that individual will come and talk to the students, introduce themselves, because here we are trying to build that bridge of trust. That way those students, if they see something, they'll come and talk to that individual. So I think that's going to be really, really good. So that's my suggestion, and I'm in support of this for sure.
Thank you.
Other comments from board members? Okay. If the board is interested and willing, I'd be open to entertaining a motion to move this to the action agenda.
President Ford, I move that we move item 1 from discussion agenda, campus safety coordinator position, to the action agenda.
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
A second.
Okay, motion by Mohammed and seconded by Nate, just to move this from discussion to action. We'll go ahead and vote on moving this to action, starting with Board Member Sika and Precinct 2.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Okay. Thank you for that, board members, and as our practice, we'll go ahead and take action on the campus safety coordinator position now. I'm open to accepting a motion on this topic.
So moved.
Motion from Mohammed that we approve the campus safety coordinator position. Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Nate. Any discussion to this motion? Thank you to Mr. Hall for putting together this job description, and to Business Administrator Kersley for your work in looking in how to fund this. I think this is never an easy conversation as we're spending resources, but I think it's been responsive to the concerns and requests that we've been hearing from the high school administrators, so thank you for that. I'm in support. Any other discussion to this motion? Seeing none, we'll begin voting with Dr. Kennedy in Precinct 3.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Thank you. All right, well now, next, we'll move to the next discussion item on our agenda. And thank you, Mr. Hall. Thank you, Mr. Kersley. The next item is titled Student Board Member Communication Plan. And in some onboard training that Vice President Salazar and I did with our very capable student board member, Miss Lydia May, she had some questions and some ideas and some thoughts about how she might best fulfill her role as our student board member, and how she can communicate with other students and get feedback. And I love the way she's thinking about that. And so I don't anticipate this discussion leading to a motion at this point. I've just asked Lydia to share with the board some of her thoughts and ideas for how she'd like to fulfill her role as our student board member, and to even tell us some of the supports that she could use through that process. And then I want to hear from board members about how you feel about, and your own ideas for how we can best support Lydia in her work. And for that I'm grateful that we have Miss Chatwin on the meeting with us, because I am looking for some support to connect Miss May with Miss Chatwin as our Executive Director of Communication and Communication and Community. I'm losing everybody's titles now, so sorry. So I'm going to turn the time now to Lydia to discuss with us.
Thank you. So I want, and the job position is to represent all students, but I don't know all students. And expanding the students I talk to and get concerns from will make me a more representative member of the students. I believe there's over 20,000 students in our district. And then the second thing is that some students have questions with how things work at the district, or who to speak to if they're having a problem in their school or their district. or with something going on with the district. Introducing myself to them could help facilitate connections and help solve problems or answer questions, making people feel more connected to the school district and the school. And then many students don't know how school board decisions affect them or what type of things the school board does. Increasing the communication between the school board through the student member and the students would increase engagement in the school board decisions and also make our board more representative of what the students want. So I have a few potential solutions that I would love to get your guys' input on. So the first solution was meeting during lunch at various high schools. I'd like to thank Board Member Ford. In our onboarding meeting, I mentioned meeting at Highland and East because I go to West, and she mentioned that we also have SLCSD and Horizonte. So thanks to her for making sure those schools got included. Students would have an opportunity to ask questions, raise concerns, and an opportunity to get connected or feel connected to the district. They would also have access to my contact information if an issue arises throughout the year. The second idea I had was meeting with student government classes or creating a council of student government leaders from each school to have meetings for concerns, questions, or input on board decisions, because those are already, that infrastructure of elected leaders in the schools is already in place. The second or third, I guess, idea I had was meeting with students, student groups like the Black Student Union, Latinos in Action, or QSAs. I know that's not an exhaustive list. To ensure that underrepresented and marginalized student viewpoints are considered with the deserved weight. And then a fourth idea I had was newsletters sent out to students via Canvas or other, I know all the high schools have some sort of homeroom. West has PAC classes. I don't know the exact names of the other homeroom classes at the other boards, but either newsletters sent out via those classes or through Canvas about the decisions the board is making and the potential effect it could have on them, or places to offer their input on the decisions the school board is making. So I'd love to know anyone's input on any of those ideas.
Thank you. Comments from board, discussion?
I'll just start and say I think all of those are fantastic ideas. I really appreciate that you're really thinking about how students are impacted by the decisions we make in this room. So I'd say yes to all of those. I think those are all great. I'm going to see what other board members think. I have an idea I'm kind of forming right now as well. But
Well, President Ford stepping out, I'll just jump in and say, Lydia, thank you for bringing this to the board. It's really exciting. I think you brought up a lot of really great ideas and student groups. And I love that you're trying to think outside of the box, and no offense to our student leaders and student body officers, but they get asked to do a lot and to be representatives for a lot of different issues and topics. They're certainly well-versed and capable, but it's only a small percentage of our student body. So I think looking at these other groups and clubs within the schools is really important. I'd also like to make a suggestion, and sorry, Jennifer Newell, but I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit. But the U City government is also something that I think we should be looking into. I know Mohammed's kids have participated in that for years. They're really representative, not only our schools in the city, but also kind of outside of our district as well. Like Roland Hall is represented as well in U City government, and that gives like kind of a demographic age range. Not only of age, but of race as well, in our community of students who are also leaders, but maybe not on our student body officer teams. I know Ms. Newell could certainly connect you with Representative Romero, who helps run that program with U City government.
I was a member.
There you go. So you know all about it. So perfect. But no, I think those are great opportunities, and anything that we can do to help support and facilitate that, we'll definitely be here to do that.
Catherine, go ahead.
Thanks, Melissa, and thanks for that great report, Lydia. I appreciate what you're doing to represent our students. Lydia and I have talked about this a little bit, and I also mentioned it as the Salt Lake City School District representative to USBA, but one thing I think that we could do that would be helpful to our school district and also to all other school districts in Utah is to work with Lydia and to create a student board member training sometime in May before their year starts. And I think Lydia is interested in this, and I know that USBA expressed interest too when I brought it up at the last meeting. So just this is a little different than what Lydia was talking about, but I just wanted to put that idea out there and say that Lydia and I may work together to pursue that.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. That's fantastic. Other comments from board members?
Yes. Lydia, thank you. I also say yes to everything out there. The reason is because you brought a really great point, which is not a lot of students know what the board does. When I went to East, on the school night, return to school night, and there were clubs, and so when I go there, hi, how are you, da-da-da, do you know what a school board member does? No. Okay, then I was like, well, probably one of your family members voted for me to be in this office, and then give them just like a general idea of what we do. And for us here, yes, we will be sitting here, we'll think about policies and everything, but students, you guys are the ones in the field. Your ideas will be the ones helping us to pave the path to a successful school system that we want to have in our district. So I appreciate you like hitting the ground running, and don't hesitate to ask any of us questions. I always say the stupidest question is asking no question. So feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. So I appreciate this, Lydia. It's been a good conversation. And Business Administrator Kersley and board members, what I'd like to suggest is, and Yandri will need your input on this, is that maybe the two of you can work together, Yandri and Lydia, to put together a student board member communication plan. And maybe Board Member Kennedy, it sounds like you're thinking towards that with USBA, but I want to make sure that we are working with your team, principal and teachers and counselor, and that whatever you're doing isn't taking away from your educational experience. I think a lot of what you're talking about only enhances your educational experience, so I think you just need to make sure that it's communicated well between everybody, and look with Ms. Chatwin at things like our board policies about student communications. As I think if there needs to be some opportunity there for change, that it would need to come to our policy subcommittee and for the board to discuss that. But in general, I would say I support everything that you're talking about in terms of reaching out with for feedback from all students, and would certainly echo what Vice President Salazar is talking about in terms of making sure you're reaching out to representative groups of students. I love that your passion for getting that student voice included in all of our decisions, and what I'd like to see is a kind of a more defined plan for that helps you, but then also helps the next student board member, and maybe work with that with Ms. Chatwin with that. Yandri, do you want to weigh in on that, or Jenny?
Yeah. Oh, Yandri first?
No, Go ahead, Yandri, and then Jenny can comment.
Okay. I think students are good with me. Have some really wonderful ideas, and I'm looking forward to working with her. We are always, in my department, looking for ways to expand our reach, and I'm really excited to listen to do that among our student population. So thank you so much for the ideas you brought. I'll follow up.
Okay, thank you, Yandri. Jenny?
I just wanted to I'm in full support of your ideas. Leah, I think it's brilliant. Ever since I've become a board member, I've been trying to really figure out how we could be more student-focused, oriented as a board member. A lot of the decisions we make they of course impact not only the school district, but all the students in the school district. And you just kind of brought an idea, which I think my colleagues may feel that might be too much, but what would it look like if there was a board meeting with just students and the board? Like if we did that quarterly at least or something through the school year, because I feel like these kids need to be heard more. And I think their issues are more important than plenty of the issues that we've found ourselves discussing throughout my service here on the board. And I don't say that to, degrade anything that we've done. I'm just saying that these students and their issues and their ideas and stuff can make a lot of things run much smoother, around here on the district. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We should talk about that. I figure we can probably figure out how to make that happen. That's a good idea, Board Member Sika. I like that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lydia. So I think you've got some marching orders. I'd love to put that on an upcoming agenda, maybe next or the one after, when you're ready, to just a more formalized plan that we can adopt as a communication plan. I think that's great. And then I'll take that challenge, Jenny. I think that's a good idea to think about how we can include more students, or maybe only students, in a board meeting. All right. Any other discussion on this topic? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the next item for discussion. Again, thank you, Lydia. That was thoughtful, and I appreciate that. The next item for discussion is a proposed fee schedule adjustment. Alan?
Yes, I'd like to invite Christina Kindle up to...
Our kid? No, she's the Executive Director of Policy and Legal Services.
Board President Ford, always a pleasure. And Sir, Vice President Salazar, always a pleasure to present to you as well, and the rest of the board. I don't think I'm going to bring the fire today. We are actually talking about student fees. But the proposal here today has to do with a topic that we discussed in Cabinet that was sort of brought to my attention by Risk Management as well as our district-wide athletic director, Missy McKay-Whiters. And I know a lot of other school districts are facing it as well. It has to do with the traditional and historical practice of having 2 students per bed on school overnight trips. And really the idea of moving to 1 student per bed or sleeping berth, I think that's something that I wrote, I don't know, in a room. There has been parent concern and parent complaints regarding like younger students or students who who don't start on a team, maybe sleeping on the floor, sleeping in chairs, sleeping on the sofa, but the parents are paying the same amount of fees for that type of lodging. There are also some concerns about any sort of hazing or sexual assaults, that kind of thing, and those things tend to be decreased if it's 1 student per bed. And while Cabinet is fully in support of that, we do recognize that moving in that direction may cause the fees to increase for lodging. And so what we were proposing to do on the fee schedule was increase the lodging costs by $300 per sport. So moving it from a $900 maximum to a $1,200 maximum. Granite has moved theirs to a $1,500 to accomplish this. Nebo is moving in that direction. Canyons has moved in that direction. Davis is considering it, but there are other school districts further north that are doing that as well. So it is a conversation that we had in Cabinet that, as Cabinet members, were fully supportive of making this change, but we wanted to get the board's input, understanding that changing the fee schedule is not something that can be done quickly if this change in lodging was to push someone over the $900 mark, because we have to have 2 public hearings. So that's why we're bringing it to you in advance. There would be some additional changes to the fee schedule, just a few items that were left off since we have this opportunity. Create a calculation to address the 4-year renewal of some of the uniforms for our sports teams. So replacing uniforms on a 3-year schedule or a 4-year for helmet recertification, and OC, Open Classroom, left a few fees off as well, mainly for their enrichment classes after school that they would like to have put on. And we had one other change related to making driver's ed classes, if you have to retake them multiple times, those fees associated with that waivable as well. So those are the changes we would like to propose, if the board is amenable to that.
I think for the purpose of this, just thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Kendall. I appreciate that. And I think for the purpose of this discussion from the board, what I'm looking for is knowing that these are some changes that are recommended by Cabinet. How does the board feel about those changes, and the board's willingness then to engage in the public hearings for the changes? Because what I'd like to do, if the board's open to that, is making our next board meeting a public hearing, as well as the one after that a public hearing, so that we could potentially approve these changes as soon as the first October board meeting, which hopefully provides some alleviation of this problem.
Right. I mean, West High did implement this change, but they had donations to accomplish it. So
Okay.
it didn't impact the fee schedule, but the West High football trip did do 1 bed per student. 1 bed,
okay, good. The question I have then is, are you recommending changing the maximum fee that could be charged? I mean,
So we aren't close
at,
to that. We aren't even
Okay.
really within $300 of students really hitting that. I mean,
Okay.
there isn't that.
Hasn't
So
happened.
we aren't recommending changing that maximum. I mean,
Okay.
it's the same maximum Granite has, and their fees are at $1,500.
Okay. So even with this change,
even with
you
this
don't
change, we're
anticipate
not
a problem?
anticipating that.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Any other comments or questions from
Is
board members?
this for athletics and clubs, or just athletics? Like the 1 person per bed?
It would be for athletics and clubs. Any overnight trip, we increase the lodging by $300.
So it's any overnight trip that involves students?
Well, except for like
1 person.
Well, I think that they go on some science camping things where they're all in a big yurt or something.
This is where the 1
So
per
it's not
berth,
that.
sleeping berth
It's
comes
not,
in.
exactly, it's not that, so.
Any other, I mean, I'm not necessarily looking for a motion on this one. I think if I have support from the board to proceed, we can, I'm just looking for maybe verbal approval to take this to a hearing for next meeting.
State law requires that we hold 2
Right.
public hearings before we
So-
can change our fee schedule, so
Right.
it's just whether you want to move forward in that direction.
And I just have a comment about that is, life is already expensive for so many families. I mean, we just increased property taxes. Teachers are not, I mean, it's just like everything is going up. And it just feels like so hard to add one more thing to the plate of these families and ask them, to add another $300. Even like with the cost of living adjustment in their work, probably they are not getting that much, some families.
Right.
And so I think we need to think a little more about that. I mean, people are hurting.
And I understand that. I mean, I think part of this is to address a student safety issue, which I'm not necessarily clear, like, you know, how we weigh a monetary advantage versus the safety of our students and giving all our students sort of equal access to what they're paying for, as well as the idea that, you know, hopefully any families, and I would just like to put this plug out there because as Business Administrator Kearsley and I are well aware that families who are in need of a fee waiver should definitely be applying for them, and our numbers in terms of those families who are eligible versus the families who apply, those are not exactly equal. So anyone who's struggling should definitely ask for a fee waiver, and even if you don't qualify for a fee waiver under the normal circumstances, if there are extraordinary circumstances that you need a fee waiver, that's certainly well within the discretion of the school principal or school administrator to waive those fees. And the $300 is really sort of a cushion. We're not necessarily expecting that it's going to cost $300, but because we don't want to be coming back and being like, you know, if we picked 150 and this is 175, you know, we can't just change the fee schedule all that time. So we felt comfortable with $300 covering it. We aren't necessarily sure it's going to bump up to that level. But I would definitely 100% encourage any families who are struggling to talk with the school administrator, and that's a completely confidential process in terms of getting all those fees waived.
Okay, and one more question. So you talked about safety. Have we had any issues?
Issues have been ranging statewide. We have had some issues in this district.
In district as well. Have we entertained the idea of, like, for families who are very concerned about the safety issue here, could they like be the ones, you know, making up that difference for their kid to have?
It would still need to be on the fee schedule as an increase.
Okay.
And that's not typically something we would do, would be to be singling out students. And I mean, and I think our perspective is to create a safe environment for all students, not just those who have been negatively impacted. We would like all students to be safe moving forward and to do the best we can to ensure that every environment we're putting students in, especially you know, when they're on a school-sponsored overnight trip, is as safe as we can make it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and would love if there is like some other way, Alan, that we could, like, you know, I don't know, if there is something from somewhere hidden under somewhere we can pull out.
And we definitely always ask the foundation. I mean, we've worked with the foundation a great deal. Mr. Yapius has been exceptionally helpful in providing funding for some of our student travel groups to offset some of those costs, and we definitely have donors who are doing that as well. I mean, our whole point is always to lessen the impact on families and students.
Appreciate that.
And part of our policy with travel always includes a question about what's the purpose of the travel and what's the value added for the travel, so that we aren't taking trips just that don't have an educational value for our students, so that we are being cognitive of the issues that you're talking about.
And every board overnight trip comes to the board for approval, so if you ever see any trip that you feel is where the financial cost seems exorbitant to you or you're disagreeing with that, then certainly we can have that conversation to adjust that on an individual trip level.
It feels to me like a good opportunity to address a situation that could potentially be a problem, maybe has a little bit in the past, and provide safety. So a fee schedule or fee hearing for the next 2 meetings seems like that would be a positive step. And then the ability, because we're doing the fee hearing, to address some issues that were kind of not addressed at the previous time that we adopted the schedule. Or is support to put a student fee hearing, is that what I call it? Fee schedule hearing, public hearing for the September 20th meeting, as well as the first meeting in October. At that point, after those hearings, the board would then have to take action on that. And if the board's not comfortable at that point, then we don't move forward. But this is just giving that opportunity for this to happen. So I'm seeing nods. I just want to make sure that the board is supportive of that. Okay. Okay. Catherine, do you have a question or comment on this?
No, I just wanted to express my support and also echo what Ms. Kendall said about how I would like to see all our children protected, and that is definitely worth the extra money to me, especially if we have fee waivers in place for students who genuinely cannot afford the extra money. So thank you so much for explaining that so eloquently, Ms. Kendall.
Thank you. Okay, all right, we'll go ahead, I'll take that direction, and we'll put a student proposed fee schedule public hearing on the next two board agendas. Thank you. All right, the final item for discussion on our agenda tonight is a follow-up to the one-to-one technology conversation that the board had just a few months ago. Maybe it was not even that long ago. It was not very long ago, and the board had a nice presentation from Sam Quantz. Thank you, Sam, for all you do, and asked him to come back to the board for a follow-up conversation. So thank you for being here, and I'll turn the time to you for this conversation.
Great, thank you so much for this opportunity. Attached to the agenda was a memo that breaks down the costs of everything that we are looking for in this question. So the question really comes down to, as a district, as a board, do we want to be a one-to-one district or not? There's a lot of value to it. There are a lot of questions that surround it as well, but most of those questions can be answered with some changes. So basically the areas that I see the most concern as I visit with the schools are number of devices, having one for every student, support, whether that is technical support or curriculum training support. Wi-Fi is a big area. And then, so those are the main areas that we're looking at and requesting funding for. Now, the number of devices is an interesting conversation because currently in the district we have about 40,000 devices between staff and student devices. So my recommendation would be to go to a one-to-one model so we could actually be a little more fiscally responsible with the number of devices that we have. If we went one-to-one, we would be down to 20,000 devices for students. We would have 4,000 employees if every employee had a device. And then you still might have a few more for specialized labs or things like that throughout the district. But the number of devices that we're seeing are people are trying to maybe hoard them a little bit, maybe that's not the right word, but gather as many as they have so they have them in case they need them, whether it's for a device breaks and they want to swap it out or to ensure that they have it. There are some other scenarios where schools have looked at, I want to have one device for every student and have one for every classroom, right? So I have 2-to-1. So that making the decision to go one-to-one would help us in those conversations, right? We would say this is what our model is. Every student will have a device. We will have some extras for break fix and so forth. But to accomplish that, we also, in addition to devices, we needed the support. Our technicians were racing around this summer with those number of devices. Many were frustrated that they didn't finish before school started. They finished as much as they could and were continuing to work through that. And that's why that would happen. This additional 4 school technicians that I've put on here would be the minimum that we would need for our schools, and that would put a technician in every 2 to 3 schools depending on the size and the student population, which would allow significant turnaround in responsiveness. And that really is our goal, especially at this time of the year. When we start at the beginning of the year, teachers come back and we have all 1,400 teachers come and talk to us at the same time. They've been very patient with us, but we recognize our deficiency in being able to respond in a timely manner, whether it's granting access to a system, getting devices out, and they've worked miracles all throughout the last couple of years and including this year. The additional 3 network services administrators who would be considered higher level back end, that really is about being able to be responsive to the many requests that come in from our departments and schools, whether that's to develop applications, integrate systems, and to do that in a timely manner. So for example, I'll get a request for a piece of software in March, and we may not be able to implement it till June with everything we're looking at. So this is about being able to respond by having enough people to answer those requests, right? To have a sufficient amount of workload where they're not working at 97% capacity, so we can respond to those day-to-day fires that come up. The last item in there was the 2 additional digital learning coaches. We've seen great strides with being able to go and model for teachers what a system looks like, how to instruct using that system, because it's really not about the devices, right? Devices are just a tool. If we don't know how to use them appropriately, then they don't do us any good. And so we need to have teachers know how to take the content that we have and move it into in their instruction. Wi-Fi is the last area. Currently, we're spending about $320,000 a year to meet about 1,800 student needs for Wi-Fi. Some are using Comcast, which is a slower speed. Well, both hotspots and Comcast are relatively slow. They're about a 25 megabit to 50 megabit link at times. And that just depends on the way the wind is blowing on your hotspots, or the trees, or the whatever. So if we looked at, and some districts have gone this route, Murray and Ogden have, and UETN is currently working on a citywide private LTE network. If we were to, and we're not looking to provide internet access for families. I want to be very clear about that. We're not looking just to provide internet access across the board for our students. We're looking to extend the classroom into our students' homes. So I really don't care if they can watch something on Netflix, and I guess unless it's an assignment, but I care that they can get to Canvas at home. I can care that they get onto Power School. I care they can get onto Lexia, all of the tools that we're looking at. So that's exactly what we're looking to provide. If we were to use $1 million of ESSER funds, this is out of a conversation I've had with UETN, we would be able to put an antenna on every single building, well, 2 antennas actually, on every single school building, and then buy some hotspots or connections into our current laptops that would allow us to provide a private LTE network into our students' homes and cover most of the area. The area that we have kind of a blank spot is right down here, down First South and 4th East, right? There's not a whole lot of schools right here, so we would look to partner with other organizations that might allow us to put our antennas on their buildings. But with that initial $1 million cost, we would then only be spending about $200,000 a year to maintain that. That would be a 5-year rotation to kind of just go through all of our buildings to replace antennas and wiring as needed. And so right there, over time, we would be saving $120,000 a year, and have the ability to provide access for all of our students. And that's what we're looking for. That's the only way to provide equitable access. We could go back to this scenario of if you have your device, great, we'll give it to those who don't have a device. When we're talking about equity, that just doesn't work. The only way we're really going to do this is to provide one for every student in the district. That's what we're looking for.
Thank you so much. So, I would love to know, it sounds like this is something you've put together that you're recommending.
Yes.
That you'd like to see the board support. Okay. Business Administrator Kersley, can you talk about these numbers and how we would fund this?
Just have a quick question for Sam. So on the presentation, it says the budget needed for years 3 to 5 is the same as 1 to 2.
Oh, yeah.
After year 5, the budget would drop.
Correct. That's because those first 5 years, because we've purchased so many devices in the last 3 years, we have, with the amount of devices we currently have, I think it'll be like 15,000 devices that we've purchased in the last 3 years. So to get it on a 5-year rotation, we need to pay up front And then after year 5, we'll be able to drop that from 5,200 devices annually to 4,400.
Now, and one more question, Sam. So the $5,200 devices each year, is that on top of what we're currently buying, or is that total?
That would be total. So we would take whatever budget we have and just roll this into this plan.
So really, not all of this is additional funding.
Right.
It's just, this is how we want to use the funding. It's a combination of some funding we're currently using to buy the devices we have.
Correct.
And then some additional.
Right.
So years 1 and 2, so current year and the next year, we would use ESSER funds to get us there. And then we'd have to figure out how to use it going forward, whether that's property tax growth, potentially property tax increase, or if there's other additional sources of revenue that we have. We know property tax growth it's unpredictable, but it does happen. And if that's what we want to do, we'd have to make sure that we held on to that and didn't use it for other things, so it was available when we hit year 5.
Okay, thank you. So this is an opportunity for the board to discuss this. So if the board wants to move forward with this today, I'm certainly open to that. But if we want to continue discussing, certainly open to that too. I recognize that this is a significant ongoing financial commitment. I also, you're getting, my view on this. I love what you're talking about in terms of the LTE network. That makes perfect sense to me. I also resonates with me that we have, more like 40,000 and computers and a one-to-one might help us be more strategic. I like the way you've put this together, Sam, just to give us a plan, a very outlined and strategic plan for how we'll use these devices, and the people that you need to support it. I've certainly seen firsthand the work that your team is doing to support the devices that we have. And I certainly hope we never have a time when we'll need to be remote, but I think it's certainly useful to be prepared with the devices and the things we need in case that happens. And certainly, if that's never something we have to do systemically again, and I hope not, it happens in individual students' lives all the time, where they have to take some time off and need that access to devices, and just the fairness of having it for everybody. The equity makes sense to me. So that's my 2 cents. I'm really interested to hear where the board is at on this. So open to board discussion. Nate, go ahead.
I think, Mohammed, did you? Okay. So yeah, I think this is really important. I really want us to be, careful and conscientious about how we support this after ESSER funds run out, because the money only goes so far, and we have a lot of priorities as a board and as a district relative to supporting staff. So I think just testing this out over the first couple of years is really important to us. And I thank you for bringing the presentation to us the way that you did, Sam. And I do have, one question about the types of devices that we're getting, and if there is room in this plan for, adaptive technology and devices for our special education students who might need a different element when it comes to technology, so that their needs are best met in their educational journey.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we already support 2 different types of devices. For our laptops, we're PCs predominantly, which have a broad array of software and other adaptive technologies that can be used on that. However, we've also seen that some of our other students have a need for a tablet device, which our standard device for that is an iPad, which has seemed to fill the need that we've had as we've worked with the special ed department and looked at those. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nate, Mohammed?
Sam the man. Thank you. No, seriously, I was just thinking about it. Here we are sitting. If it was not for internet, I don't know what we're going to be doing. Now, and I'm just thinking about these students, for example, who cannot afford to have Wi-Fi access at their home, or they cannot, access Canvas, or they have to go to a coffee shop, and, hopefully they can afford that cup of coffee. And I really love how you thought about it, because again, we talk about equity and how you looked at it over here. Because it is correct, we cannot give everyone at their home, Wi-Fi access, but the LTE antennas will actually provide an access to every student within our district who has a district laptop to know that in the event they are sick or something, they have a laptop that they can use, and it is also connectivity for that. I mean, there is a reason why federal government is spending billions of dollars in making sure that they expand internet to rural areas. And here we are in a metropolitan city, and I really support your idea because, in the long run, it has a great outcome. It'll benefit the students, and it'll benefit also the teachers who will not have to struggle with the student is not logged in, we do not know where the student is. But this one here is going to be no excuse. We know you have an LTE access. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Have other discussion from board members?
President Ford, I'd like to make a motion to move one-to-one technology, our discussion here and the plan that Sam has brought to us, to the action agenda.
I second.
Okay, motion by Nate and second by Mohammed to move to action. Any discussion on moving it to action? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote, starting with Precinct 4 and Vice President Salazar.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Seeker, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
All right, thank you. Now, we will go ahead and on the action agenda is the one-to-one technology follow-up, one-to-one technology proposal. Do I have a motion or any discussion now that we're here at action?
President Ford, I move that we approve the one-to-one technology plan as presented and discussed.
Do I have a second?
I would second that with thanks to Sam for the presentation, and especially with this eye towards equity, which is something that this plan really achieves. And I appreciate the fact that we're looking towards that for all of our students.
Thank you, Catherine. So I have a motion by Nate and a second by Catherine that we adopt the one-to-one technology proposal as presented by and discussed by the board, presented by Sam and discussed by the board. Any other discussion to this motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote, beginning with Board Member Bade in Precinct 5.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Seeker, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
All right, thank you, board members. That completes our discussion agenda as well as our action agenda. All right, then next item is a board member report, if needed. Board members, do you have things to report?
President Ford.
Nate, go ahead, you can start.
We can certainly. So Bryce and I are gonna try to kind of tag team this update from our JLC Joint Legislative Committee work that that Board Member Williams and myself and President Ford and Business Administrator Kersley had the opportunity to attend. Gosh, was it last weekend?
It was last week, yeah. I think about it.
With JLC representatives from school boards across the state. I think we had over 85% participation in the discussion and in the meeting, which is really exciting. We discussed kind of 4 areas of priorities that have a number of different kind of initiatives under each tier. Those priorities were quality educators, student supports, schools, and then of course policy. And Bryce, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to go into some of those bullet points. Down past, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just had to make sure. It seems like it was more than a week ago. So in terms of quality educators, there are 4 bullet points, and I'll read through those. So that was a 10% WPU increase that includes inflation to attract educators and support staff. An increase the educator salary adjustment to account for inflation and above the line.
Legislative.
Yeah. So there's lots of lingo. And then address critical educator shortages by creating options for retired educators to return to work without retirement benefit reductions.
Some of the student supports that we discussed as a JLC, and so it's really exciting, is to work towards passing funding mechanisms for full-day kindergarten at a full WPU, which I think is really exciting. Our school district and a number of other school districts are leading out in that right now. Increased supports for mental health needs for students as well, and then providing additional funding support for students with disabilities.
In terms of policy, quite a few things in policy. So that the JLC, we support local governance by elected nonpartisan school boards who serve as liaisons to their communities and work collaboratively with parents and guardians through policy and process. We support the elimination of curricular, co-curricular, and general fees if replacement funding is provided. We support school accountability and are prepared to work cooperatively with legislators to repeal school grading legislation. Sorry, my eyesight is all of a sudden...
What happened to that LASIK?
I know the LASIK must not be working. We support restoring the ability for local taxing entities to... That's reworded.
Oh, it has to do with, here, I'll go ahead and take over.
Yeah, you take over that one,
For
sorry.
sure. So restoring the ability for local taxing entities to receive impact fees in new development. And that's really specific to some of our rural school districts in the state.
High growth.
It's high growth areas as well. And then, of course, modifying the calculation of the certified tax rate to include an annual inflation adjustment, and then, of course, an opposition of all efforts to move public education funds to private interests through vouchers, tax credits, and other means. So this is really exciting for I think all school boards and school districts across the state to have these priorities set forth, and more or less our marching orders for our representatives of USBE and USBA to advocate for these initiatives. And I certainly will be advocating for them myself. And just want to thank the board, for allowing myself to represent us in this work. And it was a great opportunity to mix and mingle with other school board members from across the state and hang out with Melissa and Bryce and Alan on a Friday and Saturday night. So thank you. Bryce, anything you want to add?
No, I just second what Nate had to say.
Yeah, and I just...
Any other updates?
Just personally, just wanted to thank all the administrators, teachers, and students that I had a chance to meet with on the first day of school. I know I kind of touched on that in the beginning of the meeting, but it was really exciting to be out with everybody.
Thanks, Nate. Bryce, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, just a small piece, and similar to what Nate had to say, and I said it a little bit earlier, just really appreciative of everyone in our district and the work that they do to make this work happen, so thank you.
Yeah, and I will add a thank you to Board Member Sweat and Kennedy, who served on the JLC, and that committee is what came up with these priorities that the delegate assembly voted on. So we had good representation from our board in the establishment of these priorities. Do I have other updates from board members? Mohammed?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to extend a sincere thank you to all the staff and all the teachers that actually, stepped in and made the first day of school, I would say, a magical day for little ones, especially. High schoolers is a whole other issue. I walk by them and they're just like, who are you, So they just shrug their shoulders, go into your class, what class, So, and I just want to say thank you for that. Also, I had the chance to talk to some bus drivers as they were, waiting by the innovations. And it was a hot day. And they did express, their interest in having some form of cooling system in those old buses, like an AC or so. And I did communicate this with Alan, and I know Alan, they are taking action on making sure this is taken care of. Thank you. And I just want to thank also those bus drivers, because that is a lot to deal with, not having an AC, and then you have all of these sweaty teenagers, some not wearing deodorants, and then good luck, being in that bus. Yes, and also I would like to say thank you to every single teacher that woke up that day and was ready out there to welcome those kids. I think we need to start distributing 5-hour energy on every first day of returning to school to the teachers. I mean, my goodness, it's a lot of work. And I just want to say thank you to them. And also I want to thank, my fellow board members here. I sincerely appreciate everything that each one of us here work on for the purpose of making sure that our district continues to function well. And thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Thank you. Christy?
Thanks so much. First, Bryce and Nate, that was a really great wrap-up of the JLC, and I appreciate the great representation that you and Melissa and that Nate and Bryce and Melissa and Alan, that you were all there to represent us. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. I wanted to just mention that I really appreciated the effort that Yandri made to keep us so organized the first day of school, and with our assignments and where we needed to be, and making sure we had phone numbers, to make phone calls. I just thank you, Yandri, for the effort that you made doing that. I think that's the first time that we've really done that kind of an effort for all of us to be around at some point in time during the school day. So I just wanted to do a shout out to her, and also to Jason. I mean, Jason, you took so many pictures. It's just so much appreciated. And then, seeing them all up on our website was really great. Thanks to all of you for the participation tonight, and for allowing Catherine and I to zoom in, and didn't want to spread our germs to you. So thank you for being so kind tonight, and appreciate all of you. And I hope that the rest of you have a really good rest of the week. Thanks.
Feel better, Christy. Catherine, go ahead.
I would just echo everything that Christy said, with a special thanks to the people who did the GLC work. It's really important work, and I think the other thing that it represents is the fact that we in Salt Lake City are working with other school board members across the state, and to achieve shared goals. And I really appreciate those of you who went, and Melissa, Nate, and Bryce, thank you so much, and Alan, for being engaged with this important work, because it's really significant. And I also want to recognize that Christy is the president of NSBA this year, and how significant that is, and that, that we should occasionally ask her for a report on what's happening at the NSBA level.
Thank you, Catherine. Lydia, do you have any reports, or thank you for your participation?
Thank you, everyone.
Denny?
I like Lydia's.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Okay, well, I'm going to just add a couple things. We talked about this as a board a couple of meetings ago. We have 2 honorary diplomas that have gone through the process of our board policy for applying for honorary diplomas, and I want to thank April Johnson for the work she's done to put this together. We talked about when we would issue this diploma, and I want to make sure, Ms. Kindle, that I'm clear on we can issue this diploma. Do we need to take board action on it and do we need to notice this?
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be on your agenda, so it'll be
Okay,
officially
right. Okay. So thank you for that clarification. I'm getting tired, I'm sorry. And what I'd like to do is issue these diplomas. They've gone through the process and we have all of the documentation required and verified. And so the 60th reunion of West High is on September 17th. And we'd like to issue these diplomas on that night. What I'd like to do is suggest that as board president, I attend that meeting and issue those diplomas, and that Bryce Williams accompanies me to as a representative from West High School. And Catherine, if you're feeling better, we'd love to have you join us, but I don't want you to feel obligated to do that. Can't be more than 3 of us, though. So if the board is in support of that, that's when I'd like to issue this diploma, and then it would be on our agenda for the meeting following that for us to formally approve it, that we did hand out these diplomas on the 17th. Is the board in general support of that? Okay, we'll take public action on that at our next meeting. With that concludes all of our agenda items for tonight. And so I will say good night and thank you. I appreciate you being here and all the work you do. It goes very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Melissa?